This is the project for Transitional Kindergarten, and the lesson is for self-portraits. And to start out, what you're going to need is just a couple pieces of construction paper. You could use cardstock as well, whichever one you would prefer. In fact, one of them they're going to be painting on, and one of them they're going to be drawing on. So you could even do one cardstock and one construction paper, but two pieces of construction paper works as well. So what they're going to do first, their first step that they're going to do is they're going to draw a picture of themselves on one of the sheets of construction paper. And you can have them do this in whatever medium you want. They could do crayons, they could do markers, colored pencils. It's really up to you. And you're just going to want to remind them that they're just doing a self-portrait. So they're not adding things besides the picture of themselves. So no animals, no houses. It's just going to be the self-portrait. So like I said, they're just going to draw a picture of themselves. So this is the first step. So the first thing is drawing the self-portrait. I love self-portraits when they're in TK and kindergarten, because they will often just be a head with arms coming out of the head, or I love it. I love at this age, there's a big range of what their portraits look like, and that is great. You don't need to encourage them to make them more like something you would draw. Let them draw their self-portrait however they would draw it. It's really great to look back and see where they started and then how they see things differently. So if theirs is just like a big blob of a head and some arms and eyelashes, that's awesome, because that is where their development is at that time. So this is the first step. So I wouldn't have them spend too much time on these. If you give them too much time, they'll start to get messy because they'll start to just keep going. So don't give them too much time, just enough time to draw the self-portrait. And then what you're going to do is you're going to collect these. So obviously have them put their name on it, and you're going to collect them. And while they're doing their next step, or even later, just depending on how you time it, you're going to cut out their self-portrait, and you're just going to cut it out like this, where you're not cutting exactly on any lines, you're just cutting out the general shape. This is what it's going to look like after you've cut it. I would not have them cut out their self-portrait. Their scissor skills aren't good enough at this point to not end up cutting things off. And you want to preserve what they drew, so not worrying about how they're cutting it. So this would be a great time if you have people helping you. They could also be cutting, or like I said, you can cut these out after the lesson, because the next step is paint and something that has to dry. So these could be cut out and then glued on later. So that is the first step. The next step of this project is they're going to paint a background, and they're basically just going to take a piece of paper and they're going to fill the entire paper with color. And you're going to let them do however they want to do it. So they can really be creative here. One thing that I like to do in order to help them have a good looking finished product is I like to give them a couple of options. I like to let them choose whether they want to use these cool colors or warm colors, because if you mix any of these colors, you're not going to get anything that is like a brown or a black or something that will kind of muddle up the background. So I like to give them the option. So you could have paint already put on plates like this, and then the students can just choose which one they want. And like I said, it just helps them to have a better finished product. I do like to add some white, because they like to see what happens when they add the white to the color. I just would not give them black. So I'm going to use my warm colors. If you didn't want to do the plates too, you could just choose the whole class is doing warm colors, or the whole class is doing cool colors. It's really up to you. And then I have here my favorite way to give them water. This is just a dollar store dog dish, And that way they have water to clean off and rinse their brushes, and then there's just a sponge over here for them to dry. That way you don't have to worry about paper towels. And just let them paint this however they want. They can make a pattern, they can make whatever they want. If they just put paint everywhere, that's fine. They are young, they are 4 and 5. Just let them do it based on what their abilities are. Some of them will do like patterns, and some of them will just put paint everywhere. And it's TK, so that's totally fine. This is the completed background. Again, you'll have kids that really just put paint everywhere. You'll have some that make designs. In TK, there's just a big range of what their abilities are. But the idea is that it ends up just with a really colorful background. And then the last step that they're going to do is these are going to dry, and then their portrait's just going to get glued in the middle. So it's up to you whether you just want to cut these out yourself and then glue them onto their background, or whether you want to bring them back in after they're dry and let them glue them. It doesn't matter, it's up to you. So that's just the final step, and then they have their self-portrait with a really vibrant, colorful background.